Imagining Red Bull without Max Verstappen or Max Verstappen driving for a team other than Red Bull is something unthinkable for many people. We're talking about a duo that since 2015 has conquered Formula One, achieving success 4 times between 2021 and 2024. And they have amassed a huge number of victories and records together, making them one of the most successful duos in the history of Formula One. However, what started as a dream that reached its full potential now seems to be just the ashes of a relationship that's very close to divorce. Because Verstappen is not happy with how Red Bull has handled this 2026 season, and his future could be far from Red Bull camp if the discontent between them continues in the upcoming races. But what has happened between them? How did this historic duo reach a point of tension that could end up breaking in the coming months, causing them to split their paths? But above all, what could be in store for Max Verstappen and Red Bull if this relationship comes to an end soon? In this video, we'll examine how Red Bull and Max Verstappen reached this tense point and what the future could hold if they part ways. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video analysis of the tensions between Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing. As always, we need to get a quick sense of how we've reached this point. And in 2025, the civil war at Red Bull came to an end, and it was well known that Max Verstappen's group no longer agreed with the decisions and leadership that Christian Horner had been showing. This led to the former team principal and CEO of the team being fired in the middle of that year so that his place could be taken by Lauren Mekies. This seemed to calm things down at Red Bull. However, despite Verstappen and his group winning this battle, Red Bull has kept falling apart and losing over the months. Key personnel who had been with the team practically since its inception and who were present during the most successful era of this team. Still, the team turned around the difficult start to 2025. Max Verstappen fought for the World Drivers' Championship, narrowly missing out in the last race. He achieved the unthinkable by closing a gap of over 100 points and contending for the title in the final races. Max Verstappen had an uncertain future during 2025 due to the internal conflict, the poor performance of the car, and offers on the table from other teams. And a clause that could be activated for Max to leave Red Bull before the end of his contract caused many rumors to swirl around Max Verstappen, which kept getting bigger and bigger. But in the end, he gave his vote of confidence to Red Bull's future after the dismissal of Christian Horner, but in 2026, things have not improved in the slightest. Red Bull has lost a lot of key personnel since then, and from the talented group that dominated Formula One in 2022 and 2023, there are hardly any staff left. The RB22 is a problematic car that has caused Verstappen a lack of competitiveness, accidents, lack of pace, and poor results. This has affected the entire season. Max doesn't feel completely comfortable with his car, and he can't fight for victory, much less for a world title. Well, at best, Red Bull can sometimes aim to be the second best car on the grid, but generally it's the 4th strongest team in the championship. And obviously, Max Verstappen's camp doesn't like that, as they consider it unacceptable for a driver of his caliber to be running in midfield positions. To understand Red Bull's current situation, it's necessary to go back to 2025 since the team decided to keep developing the RB21 right in the middle of the transition to the 2026 car development. And although this gave Max Verstappen the chance to fight for the title that season, it sacrificed development time for the 2026 car. And in the end, Red Bull ended up paying for it with an RB22 that was extremely overweight, had many reliability problems and aerodynamic shortcomings. And overall, this has left the team far from fighting for victories this year. This was the first source of frustration for the Dutchman, who definitely doesn't want a midfield car. He wants a car he can fight with, and at least this season, Red Bull hasn't given him that. But in addition, he still believes that all the decisions Red Bull has made since the dismissal of Christian Horner have not been the right ones. However, Red Bull asked Max for patience, promising him that they would improve the car and that sooner or later they would return to their position as a contending team. But Verstappen, by this point, has lost much of the confidence he had in the Red Bull project, and this is the exact point where the tensions begin that would lead to Max Verstappen now seeming much more open to leaving the team that gave him 4 world titles. In June of this same year, a meeting was held between Red Bull's partners, Red Bull management, and Max Verstappen, where, bluntly, they asked Max Verstappen for his commitment to stay with them for the 2027 season so they could secure more talent and sponsors for Red Bull. And here, at this very meeting, Max refused to give them that commitment. Right in front of the executives and partners, he did not commit to competing with them in 2027. Red Bull saw Max's lack of commitment as disloyalty since he doesn't want to fulfill his contract despite everything they've experienced together. In addition, they want to renew his contract but remove the exit clauses, something that Max Verstappen does not agree with at all since he considers them necessary to keep pushing for good results. But on top of all this, Max has also reported that Red Bull is not listening to what he is asking for. And because Jean-Pierre Lambiase will leave the team to join McLaren in 2028, Pierre Gaucher, the team's technical director, is hiding information from Lambiase, who is still serving as Max Verstappen's race engineer, out of fear that he might take information to McLaren. Therefore, Max feels that he doesn't have all the tools at his disposal to improve his car and thus be more competitive for wins. This has Max frustrated, with Red Bull seemingly not listening to his requests. And now, we also have to add that he has been having crashes due to failures that seem to be caused by the Red Bull. All these situations have brought Max Verstappen's inner circle closer to triggering clauses that let the Dutchman break his contract if he's not first or second in the drivers' standings before the summer break. And since at this point it's mathematically impossible for him to achieve it, he can choose to break his contract and leave the team this very year. So, in summary, Max Verstappen's discontent is because it seems that the team isn't listening to him. The lack of competitiveness in the car, the decisions that Red Bull Racing has made following the departure of Christian Horner, and their limited confidence in the project's future, even though the power unit is much better than the team expected. Of course, Max Verstappen and Red Bull will continue negotiating and talking in the coming months, but there are already rumors that the relationship within the team between the two is extremely volatile. Max keeps criticizing the car, and it's expected that more Red Bull staff will continue leaving the team gradually. This leaves Max Verstappen with a choice: stay with Red Bull and race for them in 2027 despite the problems they've had, find another team on the grid, or leave Formula One altogether. If he seeks another seat, he'll obviously consider one of the top three teams: McLaren, Mercedes, or Ferrari. The problem is that all of them have their drivers under contract, since Ferrari has Charles Leclerc, who recently renewed until 2030, and Hamilton, who supposedly just activated his clause to renew with them in 2027. Automatically, Mercedes will continue with the Antonelli project, which is working and performing well. Meanwhile, Russell also supposedly triggered his automatic renewal clause. And McLaren has Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris under contract to race beyond 2026. The most desirable option for Max Verstappen is Mercedes, which obviously currently has the best car along with the power unit. In addition, it is well known that Toto Wolff has pushed to sign the Dutch driver in the past, where even in 2024 he was offered a massive contract to join them, but Max ended up turning them down. The thing is that now, according to some rumors, Max Verstappen approached Mercedes and they did not accept his conditions. It is said that he wanted a 3-year contract and was willing to reduce his salary just to join the team. But it seems that these conditions did not please Toto Wolff, who also sees Antonelli as his project and sees that he is delivering results. So signing Max Verstappen at any price is no longer a priority for the German top brass, as it probably was in 2024. On the other hand, McLaren looks attractive due to its talented technical team, signings like Jean-Pierre Lambiase, and most importantly, that it has won the last 2 Constructors' Championships and the most recent Drivers' Championship. But, as I told you, the problem is that McLaren has Piastri and Norris under contract for next season, although there are already quite a few rumors that there have been approaches that negotiations are advanced. There are even rumors saying that Piastri had asked McLaren to let him leave the team to look for a new seat on the grid. Although this has been somewhat exaggerated, the truth is that Red Bull itself has already made its interest in having Piastri clear in case Max leaves. If this happens, Verstappen could join McLaren to keep working with Jean-Pierre Lambiase and lay the foundations of a team that allows for better conditions to fight for the world title, like they had been doing. Currently, these are just rumors, but what's clear is that Max is seriously considering his Formula One future, whether with Red Bull, another team, or in the same category. So don't be surprised if, in the end, even the possibility of a sabbatical year ends up becoming a reality. Red Bull, for their part, despite being unhappy with Max Verstappen's lack of commitment, are still hoping that he will stay with them, and according to management, they know what they need to do to keep Max. With each race, day, and moment, the relationship grows more tense from the lack of success, especially when there are problems that prevent good results, and this causes the relationship to deteriorate more and more. Definitely, whatever comes next, the meetings between them won't be easy. Their relationship has many cracks that will be hard to fix. But the reality is that Red Bull wants to keep Max Verstappen as the spearhead of their project, but to convince him, it seems that a lot needs to change. Because if the problems they have continue, if the car continues to lack competitiveness, doesn't improve reliability, and doesn't listen to the driver's demands, Red Bull runs the risk of losing him. But at the same time, if Max doesn't decide soon about his future or accept the situation he's in, his Formula One journey could be close to, at the very least, taking a break because he clearly doesn't like Formula One as it is. In fact, he hates it. And if we add to this the bad vibes he has with the team, this could lead the four-time world champion to reconsider his future in the category.